The letter sat in her lap, still folded from when the doctor handed it to her an hour ago. She hadn't even told him the diagnosis yet. She hadn't found the words. He walked in before she could. A folder hit the table between them, sliding until it stopped against her hand. "What is this?" "I think you already know." She opened it slowly. Divorce papers. His signature already on the last page. A date at the top 3 days ago. 3 days ago? Daniel, I didn't even know I was sick 3 days ago. This isn't about that. Then what is it about? 11 years. I built this life with you from nothing. I put every dollar, every hour, every ounce of myself into this family. And I'm grateful. I am. But gratitude isn't the same as a future. So you already had this decided, before you knew I was sick, before any of this. He didn't answer. He looked past her, toward the window, like the truth was easier to say to the glass than to her face. I can't keep giving pieces of myself to something that isn't growing anymore. She held the diagnosis letter in one hand, the divorce papers in the other. 2 futures, both handed to her on the same afternoon. Neither one asked for. 11 years of building, and in 1 hour she had less than when she started. Was this really the end of Rachel's story? Or was it only the beginning of Daniel's downfall? 12 years earlier, Rachel was 22, working 2 jobs just to keep a roof over her head. Mornings at a diner, nights doing bookkeeping for small shops that couldn't afford a real accountant. She never talked about where she came from, not because it was a secret she was hiding on purpose, but because she didn't fully know the truth herself. She'd grown up in foster care under a name that wasn't the one on her birth certificate. Her grandmother, the only steady thing in her childhood, raised her with strict rules and quiet love, and one firm instruction: don't go looking for the people who gave up on us. Rachel never asked who those people were. She just knew her grandmother had walked away from something once, long before Rachel was born, and never looked back. She met Daniel at the diner. He was tired, frustrated, drowning in invoices he didn't understand. My store's going under. I'm 3 months behind on everything. Let me see the books. You don't have to fix my problems. I didn't say I was fixing them. I said let me see them. She wasn't chasing money. He didn't have any. She fell in love with how hard he tried, even when he was failing. When her grandmother passed away not long after, she left Rachel a small inheritance, enough to clear Daniel's worst debts and keep the doors open. You don't have to do this. I want to. This is us now. That was the beginning, not of his empire, of hers built quietly in his name. Over the next 10 years, Rachel became the reason Daniel's Hardware grew from one struggling store into 5 successful ones across the region. She negotiated every loan. She trained every manager. She built the systems that kept the shelves full and the doors open. Daniel gave the speeches. Rachel wrote them. To the vision that built all this, he'd say at dinners, raising his glass. Rachel would smile and say nothing. She didn't need the credit. She needed the marriage to work. But somewhere in those years, Daniel changed. Success made him louder, prouder, more interested in how things looked than how they actually ran. His younger sister, Melissa, joined the company to run marketing and made it clear early on how she saw things. You got lucky, that's all. Wrong place, right, man? I did the books that kept this company alive, Melissa. Sure, but Daniel built the brand. You just managed things. Melissa never respected the work. She resented the seat Rachel held, closer to Daniel than she ever could be, in the business and at home. Then came the diagnosis, an autoimmune condition, serious, the kind that needed rest, treatment, and support. The very things Rachel had given to everyone else for over a decade, without ever asking for them in return. She hadn't even told Daniel yet. She was gathering the courage, choosing the right moment. Then she heard his voice through the office door, along with Melissa's laughter. She's slowing down. You can see it. She's not going to be able to keep up with the company anymore. So cut her loose. Dead weight is dead weight, whether it's in the business or the marriage. It's not that simple, Melissa. Isn't it? You built an image. A young, growing company needs a young, growing image, not someone who's falling apart. Rachel stood frozen on the other side of that door, the diagnosis letter still folded in her bag. 11 years of building someone else's future. And the one time she needed a hand to hold, the people closest to her were already planning how to let go. She hadn't said a word to Daniel yet about being sick. He didn't need her to. He'd already decided what to do about it. In the days after that overheard conversation, Rachel watched Daniel change in front of her, piece by piece. He stopped sitting next to her in meetings. He stopped mentioning her when reporters called about the company's growth. When she asked why the new marketing photos never included her, he had an answer ready. The brand needs a fresh image, younger, more energy. It's not personal. I built this brand, Daniel. I know, but building something and being the face of it, those are two different things. She let it go. She always let things go. She had spent 10 years choosing the business over her own pride. She told herself this was just one more thing to absorb. Then she found the documents. She was searching for a loan file, something she'd handled 100 times before. Instead, she found transfer records, company shares, moving out of the joint holding account she and Daniel had built together into his name only. Signed and processed. Month after month, going back almost a year. Before her diagnosis. Before any of this started. She brought the papers to him that night, her hands steady even though nothing inside her was. These transfers started 11 months ago, before I even knew I was sick. Explain that to me. It's just restructuring, for tax purposes. Melissa's signature is on half of these as a witness. Since when does marketing witness ownership transfers? He didn't answer. He looked at the papers like they were a problem to manage, not a truth to face. Are you leaving me, Daniel? Just say it. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said the words that would replay in her mind for the rest of her life. You've given everything you have to give, Rachel. There's nothing left for us to build a future with. You're blaming this on being sick. It's not about blame. It's about what's practical. No, this isn't about my health. You decided this before you even knew. He didn't deny it. He just looked away, the same way he had the day he handed her the divorce papers. 3 days later, they came, official, sealed, drafted by a lawyer Rachel had never met, a friend of Melissa's. She read through the terms line by line. No prenup existed. She trusted him too much to ever ask for one. But the agreement was built so carefully, so precisely, that despite 11 years of building the company from nothing, she would walk away with almost nothing at all. She sat alone that night with the papers spread across the table, the same table where he'd first slid the divorce folder toward her. For a moment, she let herself feel it. Every year, every sacrifice, every ounce of trust that had led her here. Then she stopped. She went to the closet, pulled down an old metal lockbox that had belonged to her grandmother, and opened it for the first time in years. Inside was a folded piece of paper with a single phone number, and words written in her grandmother's handwriting beneath it. Only call if you have absolutely nothing left to lose. She stared at the number for a long time. Then she picked up the phone and dialed. A woman answered on the second ring, her voice calm and composed, like she'd been waiting for this call for a very long time. This is Eleanor Whitfield. I need you to tell me your grandmother's name. Rachel said it. There was a pause on the other end of the line. I think, the woman said slowly, it's time we finally met. The office was quiet, all glass and old wood. The kind of place that smelled like money that had been around for generations. Rachel sat across from the woman she'd only just met, a folder of documents already waiting on the desk between them. You knew my grandmother's name before I said it. I've been waiting 11 years for someone to say it to me. I don't understand. Your grandmother was born Margaret Whitfield. She walked away from this family before your mother was even born. A falling out over money, over control, the kind of bitterness that doesn't heal in one generation. She changed her name, cut every tie, and never looked back. Rachel sat still, the words settling slowly, like something she'd always sensed but never let herself believe. So you're saying you're the last living heir to a controlling stake in Whitfield Holdings. Your grandmother's share was never touched. It's been sitting, waiting, for over 3 decades. Rachel felt her hands go cold. Why now? Why come forward now? Because you called the number. That was the agreement your grandmother made. She didn't want this life forced on you. She wanted you to choose it, and only if you had nothing left to lose. Rachel let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. I don't want a fortune. I want to understand why my whole life feels like it's been a lie. It's not a lie. It's a piece you never had. And there's something else you need to know. Something that changes everything happening in your marriage right now. Rachel looked up. Whitfield Holdings purchased a distressed loan 8 months ago. A regional hardware chain that expanded too fast and needed a lender willing to take a risk. The room went very quiet. Daniel's company. Yes. Rachel sat back slowly, the weight of it pressing into her chest. I've had leverage over his entire business. This whole time. Since before you even knew you were sick. Since before the divorce papers. You've held the power to protect everything you built or take it all away, and you never touched it. Rachel thought of every year she gave without asking for anything back. Every dinner where he took the credit. Every moment she stayed silent to protect a partnership she believed in. I didn't want ownership over him. I wanted a life we built together. That's why I never asked about a prenup. That's why I never used anything I had to control him. And now, Rachel looked at the paperwork in front of her, the claim to her inheritance, and with it, the controlling interest in the very debt keeping Daniel's company alive. Now he's already decided there's nothing left of me worth keeping. She picked up the pen. So it's time he found out exactly what he threw away. She signed her name, not the one she grew up with, but the one that had always been hers. Margaret's granddaughter, Whitfield's heir. And, as of that signature, the one person holding Daniel's entire future in her hands. The email said routine investor meeting. Nothing more. Daniel walked in expecting a new lender introducing themselves. Melissa followed close behind, already talking about the marketing budget for next quarter. They stopped at the door. Rachel was sitting at the head of the table. 2 Whitfield attorneys sat on either side of her, folders neatly stacked in front of them. What is this? Sit down, Daniel. Rachel, what are you doing here? I'm here because I own the debt on your 5 stores. All of it. Daniel let out a short laugh, the kind people make when they're hoping it's a joke. That's not possible. One of the attorneys slid a document across the table. Daniel's eyes moved over it, faster and faster, the color draining from his face as he read. Whitfield Holdings bought your loan 8 months ago. I am the controlling shareholder of Whitfield Holdings, which means, effectively, I've owned your risk since before I even knew I was sick. Rachel, you expanded faster than the business could support. You needed this loan to survive. And as of this morning, I'm calling it due, in full, as is my right under the terms you signed. You can't do this. I'm not doing anything you didn't already decide first. You told me there was nothing left for us to build a future with. So I'm not building one. I'm collecting what's owed. Melissa stepped forward, her voice sharp. This is insane. You can't just walk in here and... Sit down, Melissa. Or would you like to explain the share transfers to the fraud council instead of me? Melissa's face went pale. The audit already found them. Months of transfers, moved out of joint ownership, timed conveniently before anyone knew I was sick. That's not restructuring. That's fraud. And it's no longer just a conversation between us. It's a legal matter now. Within weeks, the 5 stores Daniel had built his image around were seized. One by one, the debt he could never cover without Rachel finally catching up to him. Melissa was let go the same month, once the new ownership completed its review and handed the transfer records to legal counsel. Daniel showed up at Rachel's door not long after, his voice quieter than she'd heard it in years. I never meant for it to go this far. Panicked. About the business, about you being sick, about all of it. I'm sorry. Rachel looked at him for a long moment. Calm, not cold. You already told me the truth once. You said I'd given everything I had to give, and there was nothing left to build with. I didn't mean it like... I believed you the first time. I don't need to hear it twice. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. I'm not angry anymore, Daniel. I just don't have anything left to give you. Not because I'm sick. Because you already spent it. She closed the door, gently, not out of cruelty, but because there was simply nothing left to say. In the months that followed, Rachel sold what remained of the hardware chain to new ownership. People who kept every original employee, the ones who had always respected the woman doing the real work behind the scenes. She didn't gloat. She didn't need the spotlight. She just stepped back, finally, into a life that was completely, quietly, her own. 6 months passed. Rachel sat in a treatment chair, and 4 steady in her arm, a book open in her lap that she wasn't really reading. A friend sat beside her, the same friend who had shown up every single appointment since the divorce. No invitation needed. You don't have to keep coming to these. I know I don't have to. I want to. Most people would have gotten tired by now. Most people aren't your people. Rachel smiled, small but real. Eleanor Whitfield had become more than a lawyer over those months. She called every week. Not about shares, not about the company, just to check in. How are you feeling today? Tired, but better than last month. Good. That's all we're asking for. You know, you didn't have to keep calling. The paperwork's done. I'm officially your family's problem now. You were never a problem, Rachel. You were the piece of this family we lost a long time ago. We're not calling because of what you own. We're calling because of who you are. For the first time in a long time, Rachel let herself believe that. She moved back into her grandmother's old house, the one from the lockbox, the one that was legally hers again after all those years. She fixed the porch railing herself, slow afternoons spent doing small repairs, each one feeling like she was rebuilding something more than just wood and paint. One morning, sitting on that porch with a blanket over her shoulders, she watched the sun come up over the trees her grandmother used to point to every morning of her childhood. She thought about everything she had given, year after year, to a marriage, to a business, to a man who only saw her as useful for as long as she had something left to offer. She thought about the moment he handed her divorce papers instead of holding her hand. And she thought about every person who had shown up since, without being asked to, without needing anything from her at all. She used to believe love meant giving until there was nothing left. Now she knew better. The right person doesn't leave when you're empty. They stay and they help you fill back up.